r/NoSleep. Posted by u/physical_ty5956. I found a set of stairs in my house, but it's supposed to be a single story. I, 23F, have been in a wheelchair all my life. Or, at least, it felt like it. My mom had told me that when I was young, maybe 6 or so, I had some accident in a lake nearby in Charleston, Texas that left my lower half paralyzed. We had to move soon after because my dad found a new job up in New York that made a whole lot more money according to him. I never understood why he would always harp on that, since it seemed obvious to me that anyone would switch jobs if they'd be given an upwards of 50% pay raise. Anyways, the whole point of that was just to say that I've moved back to Charleston, much to the chagrin of my parents who wanted me to stay close to them. I was able to scrape up enough money to buy a used car and gas to drive down there. I have ample mobility in my feet to drive, while also having enough to afford the down payment on a house there I was looking at online. Obviously, since I'm not able to spend too much time on my feet, I opted for a single-story house, which would also be a lot cheaper. When I arrived in Charleston, I headed over to the office to sign some paperwork regarding the house and whether or not I'd take out a mortgage. I rolled myself into the elevator and pressed 6. When the elevator doors began to close, I heard a voice call out, "Hey, hold the door for me." I stuck my foot between the doors and a large man came stumbling in. I don't mean to judge a person by their appearance, but quite frankly, he looked like the epitome of a deadbeat. His hair was unkempt, he reeked of sweat, and looked as if he hadn't bathed in days. What put me off the most, however, was his clean-shaven face that didn't fit the rest of his body. If you were to only look at his face, it'd seem like a grown baby. Regardless, I felt uncomfortable being in an elevator with him. His stench immediately made the air grow heavy right when he stepped in, and I felt disgusted with every breath I took. I almost felt bad for being so repulsed by a stranger I had known for less than 10 seconds, but his later actions would make me feel no more guilt. When the man walked into the elevator, he was in a bit of a daze. It only took him a few seconds, however, before he looked down and saw me. He smirked, and I swore I heard him chuckle too. Before the doors finally closed, he looked towards the shining 6 button. I could feel my heart sink when he pressed the buttons for every single floor before it. I wanted to close my eyes so bad, thinking he'd do something for me. Fortunately, it seemed all he wanted to do was talk. Unfortunately, he wanted to talk. "So, where you from?" "Oh, just New York." I wanted to slap myself for telling him the truth. My parents taught me countless lessons in stranger danger, and I had already broken the most important rule. "New York, eh? Then you must be quite the big shot, huh?" The elevator reached floor 2. "No, not really. There's a lot of normal people there too." "I see. What's your name?" So I caught myself, "Samantha." The elevator reached floor 3. "That's a beautiful name." He thought about it for a second. "I like it. Mine's Jerry." The elevator reached floor 4. "So you seem to be new here. It's a great town, but can be a bit dangerous, especially for a young lady such as yourself. It's important to have a man nearby." The elevator reached floor 5. He took out a piece of paper that appeared to be stained with coffee or something brown and wrote something on it. Then, he folded the paper and tucked it into my shirt pocket, making no effort to avoid touching my chest. The elevator finally reached floor 6. I had never been more relieved to get out of a conversation before. I wheeled myself out of the elevator as fast as I could. I made sure not to look back. I could feel Jerry's gaze burning into the back of my neck. I don't know why, but I imagined he was smiling as well. It didn't take long for me to make my way to the agent's office. She greeted me with a smile, a lot more friendly than Jerry's sinister one. "Hi Sarah, it's good to see you today." I was a bit startled to hear someone call my name out like that. Then I remembered I had to put my name on the application to have the meeting in the first place. I simply smiled and greeted her back. "It's good to meet you too, Cheryl," she filled in. "It's good to meet you too, Cheryl." Cheryl looked to be in her late 50s. She had quite a few gray hairs here and there as well as wrinkles. However, she still had more than enough youth left in her. She was quite excited to hand me all the forms and paperwork I needed to sign. She was even thoughtful enough to bring me a shorter table to sign everything on. Everything was done with a cheerful smile on her face. It was comforting. I was over 1,000 miles away from my old life, and I had just experienced one of the creepiest moments in my life so far. Having someone treat me like a child felt more reassuring than patronizing at that moment. When I finished filling out and signing everything, I found myself talking casually with her, maybe a bit too casually. "Thanks so much for the help. Mom. It took a while for me to realize what I just said, and I wish I didn't. I could feel my face getting red with embarrassment. Cheryl looked at me with a sympathetic look in her eyes. "Oh babe. If you ever need a mama, or a hug, you know where to find me." I nodded and left the office with a smile on my face. Before I left the room, I heard Cheryl call out, "Oh, and good luck." "Thanks." Didn't know what she was saying good luck for. I assumed it was a southern thing. I arrived at my house very late that night. The house looked a lot bigger than what it should have been, to the point I was worried I arrived at the wrong house. I tried using the house key I was given and, to my surprise, it worked. The interior of the house seemed to fit that of a single story. The ceiling was quite low, but it wouldn't be a problem, considering I wouldn't be standing very often. The first thing someone would see if they were to walk in would be a short hallway leading to a living room area. There was a kitchen to the left of the living room and a bedroom to the right. Connected to the bedroom was a relatively spacious bathroom. There were one or two other closets and a backyard as well. All the flooring was carpet besides the kitchen and bathroom. I didn't bring anything with me on my drive to Charleston besides a few snacks, drinks, and an air mattress. I would have to buy some furniture later. I changed my clothes, making sure to toss the piece of paper Jerry gave me, and plugged the inflating machine into an outlet and inserted its tip into the mattress. That's when I heard something strange. Thump. I thought I was imagining things, so I tried ignoring it. Thump. It sounded even louder this time. Thump. I turned off the inflator and listened more closely this time. It sounded like footsteps? That couldn't be right. It's a single-story house and the sound came from what would have been upstairs. I decided to ignore the sound and continued inflating the mattress until it was full. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept hearing the thuds and thumping all throughout the night. I couldn't take it anymore. The noises pounded in my ear and my heart raced every time I heard them. I kept having intrusive thoughts, that maybe those sounds really were footsteps, which only put me further on edge. I got out of bed and wobbled around the house. My legs were weak, but I thought I'd be able to get around the house and find the source of my distress before my legs gave out on me. My first thought was that there was some kind of machinery or piping in the ceiling, but the sounds felt too irregular to be any of those. My second thought was an animal on the roof. Maybe a raccoon or a possum. But the roofing tiles were ceramic and would have sounded more like a clang. Unfortunately, my mind was too tired to think any further than two reasons, so I looked around the house instead, hoping I'd see something that might explain something. My little search ended up leading to more questions than answers. I ended up going through almost every single space in the house. Almost. I remembered the online listing for the house saying there was a space made for a washer and dryer to be installed, but I didn't remember seeing it. The website said the room was connected to the bedroom, so I went back there. After a quick break on the mattress, I got back to searching. I wanted to sleep badly, but the thumping was keeping me up, and honestly, so was my curiosity. It only took a few minutes of active searching until I finally found it. There was no knob, but rather a hook that jutted only slightly out of the wall. No one would have been able to tell there was a door there if they didn't look closely enough to see the outline of one. The only reason I noticed it was because I cut myself on the hook after leaning on the wall to get some rest. I put my ear to the wall and I knew I had solved the mystery. The sound was much louder there than anywhere else in the house. I gently gripped the hook. Before I could open the door, I felt a great sense of dread. It was as if my body was telling me that I shouldn't see what's behind the door. Looking back on it now, I should have listened. Against my better judgment, I opened the door. There was a set of stairs. What the hell? I was bewildered. There wasn't anything wrong with the stairs. It wasn't like it was covered in blood or anything. It was just a normal staircase made out of carpet. It's just the placement was so odd. I couldn't tell what was more strange, finding a set of stairs in a single-story house, or the fact that the stairs didn't lead anywhere. I'm serious, it didn't lead anywhere, just straight into the wall. It was like the builders thought they were building something else, realized their mistake but were too lazy to take it down, and just covered it up. I even went up the stairs, thinking there was another secret hook, but nothing was there. What was even worse was that the noises persisted. At that point, I grew too tired, and a bit scared, to deal with whatever was happening. I closed the door and collapsed onto my bed. I didn't sleep well that night. My mind was running, attempting to understand the things that happened that day, but it couldn't. The worst part was that I suddenly felt like someone was watching me. I can't remember if it was part of a dream, or I guess a nightmare, But when I rolled over in bed, I could see the stairs peeking from behind the door. The next few weeks went a lot better. I was able to purchase all my furniture and get it moved into the house. The house was starting to feel a lot more like a home. Sleeping became much better as well. Along with having an actual bed instead of an air mattress, the thumping stopped. I guessed opening the hook door released some air pressure in the room which must have been circulating for who knows how long. I felt safe. That feeling would only last momentarily. It seemed to be a normal day. I was planning on going on a big grocery shopping trip since I received my first paycheck from my new job that allowed me to work from home. I opened the front door before I realized I forgot to grab my reserved parking permit. I locked the door before I started looking for it. Locking doors sort of became a habit for me since back where I lived in NYC, not locking your door was an invitation for strangers to walk in, even if you were home. As I was shuffling through the drawer in the kitchen, that's when I heard it again. The thumping. Thump. 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 The sound was so similar, but felt different. Thump. 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 It sounded like someone was walking down a set of stairs. Thump. 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 The sound suddenly got louder and I started getting scared. There was no logical explanation for my fear, but my instincts were telling me I needed to hide. I started panicking. The sound was getting louder and my wheelchair kept slipping on the kitchen tiles. I abandoned the wheelchair and crawled as fast as I could into the shoe closet, compressing my body so I could fit. Creak. I heard a door open. Creak. Another door opened. It sounded closer. I was terrified. I left my phone in the kitchen and had no other way to get help, and now, someone, or something, was opening all the doors to my house. It was only a matter of time before they'd find me. I shut my eyes tight. I heard more doors open. Then, I heard the kitchen sink turn on. Suddenly, all the sounds stopped. I waited for a few more minutes before peeking out the closet door. I couldn't see anything. I took a deep breath and shoved the door open. There was nothing there. All the doors were closed, even the front door was still locked. I let out a loud laugh. I was all stressed for no reason. I stumbled out of the closet and got all my stuff, ready to leave. My hands felt clammy from all the sweat, so I decided to wash them. I placed my hands under the kitchen faucet and turned the knob. It burned. Immediately, I turned the knob back, turning off the release of the scalding water. Layers of my skin started to peel off. As I keeled over from the pain, I noticed that the water's temperature was turned to the highest setting. I never turned the heat all the way.